He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about to explode bratwurst.
Hey, you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munsons at the Movies. My name is Kyle, and will once again be your host. I'm joined by the rest of the Munsons. Want to give them a wide berth.
What is called a born loser? A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their world. This time we'll start with Case, who seems to have some big news.
Well, recently accepted a new job. And here's the interesting fact. The start date of my current job was May 20th. The start date of my new job is May 20th. I got to think about this day, May 20th. We'll keep that rolling, and I'm excited to talk about the Minnesota boy, Seann William Scott, who I'm relatively confident I played basketball against when we were kids.
One, congrats on the new job, but two, you really kind of buried it with that second fact there. So we'll get to the new job. How is he as a hooper?
Well, I would imagine he's good. He played basketball with a guy named Sam Jacobson, who was a very, very good basketball player. And we had the other best basketball player in the state, Skip Schaefbauer. And the two of them always battled. And I'm pretty sure during the AAU days, I played basketball. Because I imagine if he played basketball in high school, Cottage Grove isn't big. So there's one team. I know we played Sam Jacobson.
That's cool.
Sam Jacobson went to the, I think he was in the league.
Yeah, he was.
That's worth some Munson Meter points right there, Case.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
You were crossing him over in AAU days.
Nope.
No?
Rebound and defense. That was the only thing I was allowed to do, and is the only things I was good at.
Well, I'm very glad that we now are back to having two coaches on this podcast, and because Aubrey was feeling lonely for a little bit there. So, Coach Craig Case and Coach Aubrey McKay, let's go.
Let's go.
I'm assuming you got back into it because you watched Evolution and were inspired by Orlando Jones's character.
Well, yeah, we'll go with that because of the topic tonight. 100%. Orlando Jones is he's a treasure.
James, what's going on with you?
Unlike Case, I didn't get a new job, which would be fucking great. I would love to be able to dual announce that. But Case, if you need an intern, I am available. So you just let me know what you need. I'll get it for you.
I have to hire an assistant.
I'll be the classic assistant coach that it takes the players like 2 or 3 practices to realize I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I'm just like, hey, when we run sprints, you touch the end line, all right?
Every team needs that on the staff, so you'll fit right in.
Step 1, you got to want it more, all right?
Right.
I mean, it's the end of the school year, man. I can't think straight. This is tough. It's a tough end of the school year because this is the first time in a while that I've really enjoyed teaching. So it's sad to say goodbye to all my kids. I am going to surprise all of you by saying I am actually excited to talk about this actor tonight on this podcast.
I am shocked.
Hell yeah.
I want to hear how you guys are going to make this work.
You probably don't.
I'm very interested.
Not me.
I can't wait to speak on behalf of the entire white race that was 13 around the time he became popular. Yeah.
I will say on Friday in San Diego, I went to the Wonderfront Music Festival, and I was able to see our boy T-Pain perform.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
But T-Pain was just as awesome as you would expect. About 45-second vignettes of his features on all of the rap songs he was in the 2000s. Fantastic.
Nice. I like that.
And that man could still dance his ass off. And much props.
This clearly says more about me than it does all of you guys. But I can't tell if you're joking or not. And that's what makes me laugh. Because all of this sounds like a joke to me. Because I just don't hold T-Pain in the esteem that you guys seem to hold.
Oh, I love T-Pain, man.
My favorite T-Pain thing is when he battled Kevin Hart as Chocolate Dropper. My favorite thing he's ever done.
T-Pain just doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's a way more talented musician. And just because he was the king of auto-tune, he just kind of got pigeonholed.
No one knows him from his appearance in the Fast and Furious franchise. I told you guys about this last time. Why have we not caught up yet?
You did tell us about that.
But speaking of underrated, talented people, Dames Marvs was supposed to be our guest for this episode, and he unfortunately had to drop out at the last minute. He had some pretty significant personal stuff come up, and that precluded him from being able to join, and we had a tight turnaround, so we were unfortunately unable to reschedule a time for Dames, but he'll come back to us in the future, I'm sure, for a future episode. So,
But I will say this is an elaborate cover-up for a perfect crime. He set us up. There's no miserable way to make us live a Tuesday night, than force us to talk about Seann William Scott and then bail the last second. I congratulate him.
It's a clever move. Did Dame's penile implant surgery go awry or what?
he said there might have been some infection issues, but
Ooh.
the outlook's looking good. Looking good.
I'll be praying for him.
T's and P's, baby. May 23rd, when this episode releases, we've got a few. I don't know if they're as good as the last time, but they're birthdays. First and foremost, we have Drew Carey, famous for the Checks Notes Drew Carey Show, Whose Line Is It Anyway, Wheel of Fortune, and a very sad movie career. How old is Drew Carey?
I feel like he is forever old because he was old to me
Forever.
watching the Drew Carey Show. I was like, that guy is really old. I didn't know they were giving guys that old sitcoms. I'm going to go way too high on this. 62.
He always looked old because he's like the classic Midwesterner who's never really taken into consideration how to take care of yourself like once. And so he looks better now than he did when he was when he was on the Drew Carey Show. Like where like he's like, oh, I should take care of my health and maybe, put on some sunscreen and, drink some water. And so like he looks younger now than when they were filming that show. I'm going to go a little older. I'll go 65.
Did he host The Price is Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, come on. It's only appropriate then. 1 year old. Not playing the game.
That is the best guess I've heard in a long time. Unfortunately, it's wrong.
Damn it.
Because Drew Carey is turning 66 years old, which would make James the winner of that particular
Oh, nice.
old dude.
Win of all wins, that would have been.
That would have been incredible. Next up, we have H. John Benjamin, known as mostly as a voice actor, really good voice actor, the voice of Archer, Bob's Burgers, Wet Hot American Summer, and just tons of other voice projects over the years. How old is H. John Benjamin?
A voice actor?
55.
52.
I know what he looks like, but only from like a still frame. Like, and his voice is timeless. I'll say also 65.
Ooh.
H. John is turning 58, so Aubrey takes that one. Yay. All right, Case, no pressure here, but got to get you one. Come on now.
Nah.
Don't phone this one in. All right, last, certainly not least, Richard Ayoade, who you may know from the IT Crowd with Chris O'Dowd from back in the day. Great show. The Watch, Paddington 2, and lots of British TV. How old is Richard?
This is also difficult because I only know of him from The Watch, and I couldn't even guess his age in that.
He's funny in that.
He seems like one of those guys who came out of the womb like Jason Bateman, where he was like already 36. It's like, so he could be any age.
Was that a compliment? I'm trying to figure that out.
It's a compliment you grow into.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going 40.
I'm going to go 52, just like I did in the last one.
46. I'm going to split him.
Let's give another one to James. Richard is turning 47 on May 23rd.
Look at that.
Happy birthday to those three and anybody else who's lucky enough to celebrate a birthday on May 23rd. Since we've hurdled episode 100, we're at 101. And the 5 actors that the wheel was picking from were Sam Shepard, Kevin Corrigan, Frances McDormand, Joaquin Phoenix. But it doesn't matter because the wheel selected Seann William Scott. Dame's originally planned to join us to talk about Seann William. And he has 56 credits on his resume, very bite-sized, consumable, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
He has got 4 producer credits and 2 soundtrack credits, so not a lot of off the screen here. But before we get into the minutia, the details, the roles, we always give James the opportunity to see if he can stump us with some trivia, Fast and Furious style.
Yeah, before we get into the trivia, I have a question for the group. Do you think if Dames had picked, say, Frances McDormand or Joaquin Phoenix, that he would have been able to make it tonight?
Yes.
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 Yeah, so do I. So do I.
He would have found a way to call in from a spaceship if we were doing somebody else.
For those of you who are new listeners, I know Aubrey said that school is out, but maybe some of his students are tuning in for the first time. I'm going to read 3 facts, 2 of which are going to be true about the man of the hour, Seann William Scott. One of them is not going to be true about him, but is going to be true about one of the many illustrious cast members of the Fast and Furious franchise. The gentlemen here are going to have to guess which one of those facts is not true. They also take a shot at the actor. That's for bonus points, but they just got to guess which one's not true. Fact number one, his high school gym teacher, who is also his varsity coach, told him he'd never make it as an actor. And his response was to sign his headshot, slam it on his desk, and tell him that it'd be worth something someday. Obviously, that proven true. Fact number two, whenever he's had to use a stunt double in his movies, he's used his cousin. But in one scene, his cousin attempted a stunt, broke his ankle, and refused to do it again. The replacement stunt double was then knocked unconscious on his first attempt at the stunt. Fact number three, he didn't have his first girlfriend until he was 30 years old due to being extremely introverted and shy around women.
These are good ones. I think I know it, though. I think number three is real. I think the lie is number one because I think it's about Jason Statham dealing with his diving coach. I'm just imagining him with his thick British gravelly accent. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm going with that one. Statham, fact one.
So in your mind, Jason Statham has sounded like this his whole life.
Yep, he sure has. Same amount of hair too.
I feel like James has made this impossible for me to pick a rapper, and I'm annoyed by this. I think it's the first one, and I will break tradition. And I'm going to say it's The Rock because that sounds like something a wrestler would do.
I'm going to take a poop on our only Munson who's ever been in a Fast and Furious movie, and that's Djimon Hounsou. And I think Djimon Hounsou isn't as much of a badass as he claims to be, and he has a stunt double and his brother doing all of his stunts.
I disagree with this. This is an insult.
Yes.
This is a travesty. This is a travesty.
Djimon Hounsou is to be revered. He started the final words in the Munson podcast. Nothing bad about that guy.
I should have went with Jason Momoa.
That man is somewhere on set right now doing his own stunts.
Hell yes.
Djimon's a legend. Come on.
Djimon Hounsou, the man who was actually homeless before he became famous. You don't think he could do some stunts? That man probably did stunts for like the first 15 years of his life. Okay, cool. So no one went with number three, despite famously playing loudmouth and free-spirited characters and who are incredibly suave and smooth with women. He did not have a girlfriend until he was 30 years old. He is extremely introverted and shy. He's based those characters, which you could say have made the vast majority of the money in his career, off of friends of his from high school.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's worked out for him. Kyle, you are correct. He has dated many supermodels since then. I believe he was actually married to one as well. But you could see how that could be an overwhelming kind of experience for an actor when you're most famous for playing the smooth talking ladies man. You're like, I am not that person at all. I wish I was that person, but that's not who I am. Fact number one, his high school gym teacher, who was also his varsity coach, told him he'd never make it as an actor. And his response was to sign his headshot, slam it on his desk, told him it'd be worth something someday. Is true. Sean actually had a great relationship with his teacher / coach. And when American Pie was a huge success, which was only 7 years after he graduated high school, his coach actually had the headshot framed, kept it on his desk until the day he retired, and said he was really proud to be proven wrong. Case, it's funny that you had mentioned you think you've played basketball against him, because I also looked at other alumni from his school, one of them being Sam Jacobson, who you said famously played for the Lakers and probably gave you guys a ton of buckets back in the day. But the other person who's famously from that school, besides Seann William Scott, is police officer Derek Chauvin, the guy who murdered George Floyd and is in prison. Yeah, so you go on their Wikipedia and you're like, oh yeah, a couple athletes, Seann William Scott. I was like, hey, excuse me, who else went to this high school? Go Wolfpack, the fighting Forest Green and White.
Oh, don't go them.
Yeah. In fact, number two, whenever he uses a stunt double, he uses his cousin, but in one scene broke his ankle on the first take, refused to do it again, and the replacement stunt double was then subsequently knocked unconscious on his first attempt. That is not true about Seann William Scott, but it is true about one of his castmates in the movie The Rundown, in which Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's cousin, who has played his stunt double in his entire career, broke his ankle in their first stunt when they are rolling down the side of the mountain, and they actually roll for an extended period of time. The director, I believe it was Peter Berg, said we kind of just wanted to have like the longest falling down a hill in the history of action movies. We wanted to be like kind of cartoonish, so it would go from like scary to funny. And we kept getting all of our stuntmen like very hurt. And so once The Rock's cousin refused to actually film that scene, it's like we were just kind of looking for guys who would do anything. And then we knocked the first guy unconscious. He's like, I felt terrible about it. But in fairness to The Rock's cousin, he ended up winning an award for his performance in that movie. So it all worked out in the end.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Purple Heart.
The Purple Heart.
Purple Heart. This guy, clown over here. Good work, James.
That's why I'm here.
Crushing it, as always. All right, Case, what do we got for a box office snapshot for old Steve Stifler?
As I was plugging in numbers, I almost texted you guys like, this one couldn't be more predictable. But I wanted to save it for the discussion because I think you guys will agree. I mean, let's be honest. It comes down to American Pie, right? It's world grossing $756 million between the three of them, which is nasty. American Pie is the 17th best movie we have based on box office performance against investment, which is pretty impressive. However, we do have some issues.
Huh.
They involve his critic ranking and his fan ranking. His critic ranking is a 41.8, and his fan ranking is a 53.2, which respectively ranks him 95th and 92nd in our critic and fan rankings, which is not good. It's 95 out of 101. He ranks 66th on the IMDb. However, when I was doing that research, I did find something. He peaked at number 3 in 2001. It was revolving around American Pie 2, Evolution, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But let's get into the comparative numbers. One area I was shocked, but after looking at American Pie movies and his involvement in Ice Age, he ranks 37th in total box office. Star meter, like I said, he's 66th, critic 95, fan 92, and then he's 15th and 17th in the two different box office metrics. Overall, he comes in ranked 60th out of 101.
That feels like it's carried heavily by his name recognition.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was such a pop culture staple in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots to unpack in my mind there. I'm not shocked that he was that high at a certain point because it was in like a 3 or 4 year span. It was like every major comedy he was, even if it wasn't successful, it was like every major one coming out, his name was tied to it in some way.
Yeah.
And if we're being honest, he steals a lot of scenes.
Oh, yeah.
There are movies that people consider like comedy classics of that era, and he might not be a main character. And they're like, yeah, but he was hilarious in it.
Hollywood tried to do his thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to make him a star for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
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 Thankfully, it didn't work out.
Tell us how you really feel. Yeah. Thanks, Case.
Yeah, man.
The first major role we're going to talk about is 1999. So first and foremost, born in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, small town. As Case said, he was the youngest of 7. So he's got 6 older siblings, born in 1976. Played a lot of sports, football and basketball in high school. Like I said, Case was crossing him over. He was crossing Case over. No one really knows because no one had home video back then.
I'm pretty sure it was more like we were battling in the paint for rebounds or diving on the floor for loose balls. I'm relatively confident I could find some film of him playing basketball.
If we find video of Seann William Scott and Case playing basketball before I see footage of Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't think it happened.
The Elk River Elks versus the Park Cottage Grove Pack. Rivalry made in heaven, boys.
He went to University of Wisconsin and Glendale Community College for his higher education pursuits. And I believe pretty soon after that, he moved to LA. He worked a lot of odd jobs. While, like we talked about earlier, while he was struggling to become an actor, he worked at Home Depot. So did Adam Driver. Look at it, 2 episodes in a row with an actor who worked at Home Depot. And Home Depot is not sponsoring our show. And you should be at this point.
Do you think Home Depot would want us to compare Seann William Scott and Adam Driver? Because I feel like that might not be the way they want to get their brand out there.
Aubrey, you know how I know you're not in a fraternity is because you don't just tout You just tout all your famous alumni. It doesn't matter what they did. You just tout them.
You know how hard it is to stop touting even the most problematic famous alumni? Like you have to have an argument, be like, I think this man was actually evil. And they're like, fine, I guess we don't like evil anymore.
He was working at the LA Zoo for just like a couple days. That was actually right around the time of American Pie. I thought that was entertaining.
He had a buddy that worked there, and his buddy talked him into working there because he thought he was going to be feeding the animals.
So he was doing churros.
They were training him how to feed the churros. And he's like, this is very strange.
Hey, it's better than cleaning shit. So, take your dubs where you can get them. But I mean, young actor in LA, trying to get jobs, auditioning a ton. So he had like small part. He played a character named Moondoggy in an episode of Unhappily Ever After in 1996. Anybody remember that show? You don't. So I won't even pause for dramatic effect. He was in a Sunny Delight commercial in 96, and he was in an Aerosmith music video for Hole in My Soul. He played a football player. Typical starving, trying to go to auditions actor, and really wasn't having a lot of luck until he went to the audition for the role of Steven Stifler in American Pie from 1999 alongside Natasha Lyonne, and what we're calling his first major role. And boy, what a doozy for your first major role. And Case has it.
You can boil this review down to one word: Stifler. This movie launched his career and put him on a trajectory of unprecedented typecasting. It's wild. But full disclosure, I did not rewatch this movie for the podcast. I've seen it enough.
Oh.
But I do know that this movie was a cultural phenomenon. For those that don't know, it was a 1999 like comedy buddy high school movie where essentially this group of high school students graduating high school are going to have one last run at it and have the time of their lives before they all go their separate ways to college and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, they're trying to lose their virginities. That's the baseline of the movie.
That's true. Correct. What's important is when he was given the role, it only had 2 scenes. He was only supposed to be in that movie for 2 scenes. And so because of that, he wasn't going to get a huge payday. And like somebody had brought up earlier, this was the beginning of him stealing scenes. In that particular role is perfect at it. And it was interesting. He said that he's more like the character in Final Destination, Billy Hitchcock, than he is Stifler. And like Kyle brought up earlier, he called on some douche friend that he had in high school, and he just basically imitated that guy. So my hat's off to you, sir. Whoever you are, you made a star to Seann William Scott.
Hope you're getting residuals from that.
Not the first one. Seann William Scott barely got residuals from that one. But it a 100% iconic moment in film history, iconic moment in pop culture history, and it birthed a character that, I mean, they tried to make a star out of this guy in so many different movies, playing that douchey dude bro. And certainly it worked for a while. I don't know how well it holds up. It really hurt his career in the long run. I don't hold that against him. It sucks because we'll never know like what kind of range he had, because the first 2/3 of his career is based on, hey, we want Stifler. Can you bring Stifler to this role? I think this is an amazing start to a film career, and it's a fun way to start our analysis.
I mean, his character was tiny. He was just an asshole on screen.
Yeah.
And by the end of the 4th movie, like, his character arc, I mean, I rewatched this and American Reunion, the 4th one. His character arc's actually one of the cooler character arcs in the movies, especially going through American Wedding.
Yeah.
He's basically the antagonist in American Wedding. He almost screws up the entire thing. And his character arc by the end ends up with Finch's mom. It's like he gets like the final say, the final win out of all of it. It's interesting.
Who knew that he could dance like that? I mean, he won a dance-off. It's incredible.
He won not only a dance-off, he won the MTV Best Dance Sequence Award for his dance sequence in American Wedding.
In case you didn't mention that, despite making almost $1 billion and stealing every scene and probably being the most quotable character in that movie, outside of, I'd say, the actual Jason Biggs humping the pie scene, he got paid $8,000 total for that role. And he spent 6 of it immediately, like a good Munson would, on a used Thunderbird, baby.
That's right.
Yes.
I couldn't respect that move more. And so I was like, oh, and what'd you spend the other $2,000 on? He's like, I don't know, probably bills or something. Anyways, like I spent that money before the movie even came out. I was just like so happy I got paid to do anything at that point in my career.
That's awesome.
A crime.
Yeah.
He got paid that little.
And then obviously when the next one came out, he was able to renegotiate it by the time they got to American Wedding, where he's getting a percentage of the gross ticket sales, which means he's probably living off of that one deal he negotiated at this point.
If Stifler is not who he's like, and he's basically the antithesis of that character, then one, this is a real knock at typecasting, because typecasting is what ruined his career.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This explains why all of these other movies don't work for me. Pretty much every comedy he does after or outside of Stifler doesn't work for me. And it's because that's not what he's good at. Because he's good at Stifler, but there's no variation or nuance to be played there, because it's not really who he is at all. And the fact that he can kind of create this character is definitely kudos to him, because Jason Biggs has the most memorable moment, but that character is those movies.
Yes.
We mentioned he was working as the churro guy at the zoo. They filmed this movie, and he didn't know if it was going to be a hit or not. He just knew that he got a new car out of it and buy a new used car out of it. And he's like, I'm still trying to make it as an actor. So he kept his job as the churro guy. The movie was about to come out, and he actually got hit by something that one of the apes had thrown at him. I think he said it was a pine cone. And he's like, I took it as a sign that, you know what, you're right, I'm just going to quit. And he just quit. He's like, I just hope this thing works out. You know what, I'm a working actor now. I have $2,000 to spend, baby. I don't need this job anymore. It worked out. Yeah, he was lucky, but he said he took it as a sign. Still slinging churros before this movie came out.
Meister, baby.
I like all these movies.
I do too.
I think the first one is like a legit solid movie, and the premise works. And I think there's a much larger conversation to be had at some point in time about the raunchy comedy and what happened to it.
Mm-hmm.
And also how that plays a role in his career. Because what hurts him is that this is his character, and he can't capitalize on this anymore.
Oh, no.
Because this character is no longer welcome in our society in any which way. And so he can't do anything. Every other genre of movie, you could pay off on a character, like, look, whatever character makes you famous. He can't do that because the raunchy comedy is dead.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate.
Yep.
At least for him.
I think the reason why it worked so well in these movies is that they introduce him as the stereotype you'd expect to see in this type of movie, right? He's a womanizer. He just cares about getting laid. He's kind of a bully. He's a shit talker. But then the way the other characters interact with him is that it's not like he is idolized. He's actually kind of like mocked.
Hated.
Yeah, for being that. Mm-hmm. And they look at ways to kind of specifically, fuck with him. And instead of being like, hey, this is like the alpha male we want to be like, they're like, this dude's a loser. It's just like.
But he throws great parties, so we tolerate him.
Yeah, he's popular and he's good at lacrosse. And it's like, we got to put up with this shit.
Right? Like that's by the end of it, it's like, you're our dick. That's literally the quote at the end. They're like, you're a dick, but you're our dick.
It's such a meteoric rise that it sucks no other directors took a chance to let him develop those other characters. As I'm listening to Aubrey talk, I think about the other side of the coin too, of like, he is not like this person at all. So he clearly has the ability to act like a certain character. So it'd be interesting to see what would have happened had he had the opportunity to grow some other characters early in his career. And hopefully, as we get towards the end, he's starting to do that.
All right. So riding off American Pie, the one that Case mentioned earlier, Final Destination, he plays Billy, gruesomely murdered, beheaded, pretty shockingly.
Ooh. Train sign. The train whips up the sign.
Like, he's kind of a side character. He was basically, like, I would say, like, 5th or 6th build. Seann William Scott's just, like, this poor, innocent bystander, like, high school jock who just kind of caught in this and, unfortunately, gets his head decapitated.
Yeah, I think this had the same producers as American Pie, and he had to convince them to let him play this role because it was such an opposite end of the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
His brother got freaked out when he saw the movie and he saw his brother get decapitated. So his brother freaked out on that, which is hilarious. And the other thing, I love this movie because, one, I just genuinely enjoy the plot, but I also enjoy the nod that the directors and producers gave to all the horror legends. His character is named after Alfred Hitchcock. Yep, as you watch the movie, they have all sorts of different homages to different horror geniuses and icons, and it's a fun movie to watch for a lot of reasons.
One thing I liked about this movie, which I like about a lot of horror movies of this ilk, is a fresh take on the horror genre. And at this time is when Scream like rewrote kind of the horror genre, and everyone was trying to be the next Scream. So there's a lot of new masked killers and slasher flicks. And this was the first one that was like, no, there is no killer. It is
Destiny, baby.
Yeah, it's the Grim Reaper spirit. You can't run from anything. And then you like died in like elaborate Rube Goldberg style deaths, and it was fun. And you watch that and you're like, that's creative, that's new, and that's why they were able to make 5 of them. And I stopped after 2.
Oh, you're missing out.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard. It's similar to Saw, where it's like, yeah, this is a new take on a horror movie, and they're going to make 1 million of these, and they're all going to make a ton of money because it's fun.
I thought this was the one where the logs go through somebody's car, but that is
that's number 2.
Yeah, I kept waiting for someone to die by a log, and I was like, "Damn it, this isn't the one." Shit,
it's messed up every millennial who's ever driven on the highway ever since.
Final Destination 2 has that cultural impact of changing the way every millennial has ever driven, because I still get from behind any truck that's like that.
Dude, you see those logs, you're like, I'll stay back here. I'm good.
Yep, no, I'm good. Let me get past this really quick. This movie rules. All the movies rule. The roller coaster one rules. They're all great. If you're just like, yeah, let's go watch some people, die in strange and unique ways that'll never actually happen and will scare you for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he reprises his role as Stifler in Road Trip in 2000. That's right. Did I nail that?
Yep.
No, you just missed out.
It's basically the exact same character in Road Trip. Like almost no different. EL.
I feel like his character in Road Trip is a little bit more of a prequel to his character in Old School. I can't be sure on that. When he steals the short bus from the blind school,
he steals the short bus, and she goes, "Stop feeding my dog," and he goes, "I didn't."
This movie is an abomination.
No, you're wrong there. We're going to disagree.
This is the one I look at and I go, I get why American Pie was like a cultural thing. And even looking back on it, I don't really have a ton of problems watching American Pie. Road Trip makes me feel gross.
I feel like you hate Todd Phillips more than anything.
You might be onto something there, Case. Yeah.
might be onto something there.
Yeah.
Is that really the wrong side of that coin to be on? Me and every woman that's ever existed? Because he treats them terrible in these movies. In particular, this movie. And it, at the time, it wasn't that big of a deal. But looking back at it now, it feels really gross.
All I know is that movie was a renaissance for the name Kyle. It made it cool again. We rose above our nerddom. It's a very important day.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie in 20 years, so I couldn't tell you if it held up or not.
I watched it a week ago. It doesn't hold up.
I watch it. It doesn't hold up.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And I ain't planning on it either. I got better shit to do.
EL. What a name, too. EL. Does anybody know what EL stands for? Will we ever know?
Now, his character in this is used like specifically to be the guy who is pushing his friend to just like accept that like his relationship's fucked. He should cheat on his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Like just give up already. And because he's the Stifler character, he's leaning into that where it's like you're already cheating, like you might as well just cheat again, like actual this time. You're mentally cheating, like stuff like that.
He's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Truly atrocious person.
This is one of the problems with the movie though. The movie makes him right.
Because she ends up
the movie makes him right.
Yeah.
Because he does the same thing with Kyle. He pushes Kyle to stand up to his old man.
Well, he did need to stand up to his old man. Let's be
honest. Yes.
His dad's an asshole. Okay, let's keep going. Dude, Where's My Car? We plays Chester alongside Case's boy Ashton Kutcher.
The only thing I have about this movie is that me and my buddy in grad school went and watched this. We were the only 2 people in the theater laughing, which then made us laugh way more than We should have, and neither of us were high, so we had no reason to laugh. We giggled at something early, and then we started laughing that no one else was laughing. We threw out a lot of sympathy laughs in this movie.
And then?
Nope,
Oh my god.
not going to do it.
And then?
Oh, oh my god.
Let me just say it. It's aggressively stupid, but certain lines have stuck on my head for 20 years, and I don't think I'm proud of it, but they have. They just have. The Continuum Transfunctional? It's a stupid movie. It's an aggressively bad movie.
That "and then" line is one of the lines that my friend still uses.
No,
He throws it out in conversation like people know what he's talking about. And he doesn't care that no one knows what he's talking about. It's like, I know that's from Dude, Where's My Car? Like, I know for a fact.
So this is the first time you've seen this, right? You've never seen this movie before.
This is the first time I've seen this. I've mentioned this before in terms of like, there's just movies from like my youth, middle school, high school, college, where I'm just like, oh, this is a white guy movie. There's nothing here for me.
Yeah.
Dude, Where's My Car is that movie.
It's a white guy movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
That's accurate.
I'm never going to watch it, but I knew some of the stuff. Because, I mean, I had white friends, and they talked about it, and they laughed and giggled, and they did all that kind of stuff. I just never watched this movie. Of his movies,
It's your opportunity.
this is like one of the two things that everyone knows him from. So I have to watch it. I made it 30 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
This movie is outrageously stupid. I get it, though.
That's the shtick, though. That's the shtick. It is supposed to be outrageously stupid.
I totally get it. It's just one of those where, like, at this, I'm 37.
Yeah, you're just not here for it.
I've never been a person that smoked a lot of weed. It's just, I'm like, what am I, like, this is not for me. I get the bit, and I understand why people would like it. I made it to the tattoo portion of the movie, and I was just like,
I was going to say,
all right.
Breathe.
yeah, that,
Sweet.
They're doing a who's on first bit, and I'm like, this can't be it.
yeah. My friends actually got henna tattoos of that when we were seniors in high school, and they thought it was the funniest thing ever. And it was funny at that time.
Mm-hmm. And I believe it. Like, I'm not even mad at that. Yes, I would be in that. I would be there, and I would see that, and I would be like, that's ridiculous. But I'd be like, I understand why they like it. Have fun, guys. Like, do your thing.
Yeah. Have a good time out there, everybody.
Yeah, don't bring it over here, and you're fine. But you're good over there. Do that.
One of the dumbest movies ever made.
It is on my short list of worst movies I've ever seen.
Ooh.
Pop culture staple, though, for sure.
It is. Also, terrible movie title.
Memorable, though. Like an action flick we're going to talk about in a little bit. Sneak preview before we get there. All right. Evolution. 2001. He plays Wayne, an aspiring firefighter who ends up partaking in the battle against aliens who the government decided to pump fire with napalm, and it goes horribly wrong. But, David Duchovny, got some good actors in this movie. I really enjoy Evolution. Love's strong, but I really enjoy Evolution. Orlando Jones steals every scene he's in the movie.
Steals the entire movie. First time watching this movie also. And it was just a point of never getting to it. Orlando Jones steals it. I like him. And I was looking through some of this stuff. Everything I've seen him in, I like him in. And he understands the assignment here, which I appreciate. Anytime an actor understands the assignment, he's just like, oh, this is what we're doing? Okay, cool. Also, Julianne Moore has never entered a movie and the movie has gotten worse. That's never happened.
She's great in the movie. I love her. She's awesome.
Great.
There's not a lot of depth to her character. Like the romance isn't, it's not built authentically, but it's Duchovny and Julianne Moore, both lovable.
Mm-hmm.
The best scene, and James might note this, the thing I always remember with Seann William Scott is when they're in the mall and they're trying to get in, and he goes, and Orlando Jones goes, I believe we've established that caca, and tuki don't work. And then he eventually gets him to say anything. He goes, go ahead, rub some funk on it.
Orlando Jones kills. It's fun. It's like time capsule fun. Like, this is a movie that, like, you show to a younger person now and they don't like it. You're just like, okay, well, this is fun. This is like how we had fun watching these movies. It's stupid. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't have to make any sense, but everyone has a lot of fun and you have a lot of fun watching it. So what's compelling and intriguing about him playing Stifler and it being opposite of who he is as a person? This is the argument against that, though, making him a good actor, because this is a comedic role that's opposite of that and is asking him to do something different. And I feel like he's completely inconsequential to anything that happens in this movie. Like, I'll forget he was in this movie.
The only reason his character really matters is because of the fire truck at the end. They need his fire truck access. Is ultimately what it comes down to spray the Head and Shoulders.
I don't think he leaves a mark on this movie. This isn't him scene stealing. I don't think he does anything really to set himself apart. Each other person has their own thing. They all have like a bit of a chance to find their footing more than him, but he had an opportunity and I think he missed it in this one.
Mm-hmm.
X-Files fans hate this movie because this is why David Duchovny took a break from X-Files. Be careful who you bring this up around. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, God.
Yo, X-File fans making them sound like Swifties is hilarious. Like they're going to come after me.
Never know.
I understand why an X-File fan would hate this movie, though, because this goes against everything that I assume an X-File fan would be into.
Oh, yeah. 2001, so 2 years later, American Pie 2. He gets an MTV Best Kiss Award with Jason Biggs for their scene. They go toe-to-toe with the two ladies at the summer beach house. They get pushed to the edge, and they may end up making out in the movie.
Help me out. It's 1, 2, wedding, reunion, right?
Yeah.
So what happens in American Pie 2?
Summer.
Because I don't remember this movie at all.
They go to the summer beach house on Lake Michigan. It's basically them like reuniting a summer or two later.
Oh, this is the payoff on the band camp bit, isn't it? Don't they go to the band camp thing?
Yeah, he goes and performs and terribly in front of everybody at the band camp thing.
Much worse.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. He plays Brent, a role alongside Will Ferrell and Chris Rock. So we talked about this a couple episodes ago.
I think his scene is so funny in this movie. I think he is playing the opposite of Stifler. He is, this like kind of churchy hippie who wants to save animals, and Jay just doesn't believe him. And I think it is so funny. He's like, so you're like in this for pussy, right? And he's like, no, I'm in this because I love animals. It's so fucking funny.
Doesn't he get all bent out of shape when he talks about girls farting?
Yeah, he's like, only stinky stoners fart. But it's Jay like finally like backs him into a corner and he's like, so do you like love sheep? He's like, yeah, I love all sheep. Sheep are God's beautiful creatures. He's like, would you fuck one? And he's like, oh my God, you're sick. Like, I would never do that. He's like, no, I'm saying like, if you were a sheep, would you have sex with another sheep? He's like, well, yeah, in that case, you bet your ass I would. And he's like, this guy's not one of us. He'd fuck a sheep. And they like throw him out of the van. It's so fucking stupid.
Oh, baby.
Should I watch this movie?
No.
You guys seem to be the audience for me to ask this question. Should I watch this?
I think so.
Nah. I'd say this is a more of a nostalgic early 90s Gen X comedy that is now more raunchy early 2000s like Kevin Smith has a lot of layers to his fandom and they kind of like build on themselves.
Yeah.
So like it's called Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, so there's like a Star Wars fandom to it. Like there's a lot of layers to this that like if you don't find stoner comedy funny, this is fully stoner comedy.
Yeah.
The two reasons I think you might like it, Aubrey, is it's a movie about making movies, which I think you enjoy most of the time.
That's true.
I do.
And Chris Rock just laying into the white man as the black director is very entertaining, and it's worth watching for that.
Hilarious. Wasn't his name Chuckathon?
Like the Chris Rock character is pretty entertaining. Because Seann William Scott is like the darling of 99 to 2001, he was on SNL in 2001 and was in a skit with Will Ferrell about being patriotic.
This is one of Will Ferrell's many iconic skits, but behind the scenes it's hilarious because he shows up at the office wearing a American flag themed bikini, basically, and like a half top that says USA. And why it's so funny is that during the skit, when he puts his leg up, you can't see it on camera, but his balls pop out and they're right in front of Seann William Scott's face. So he's the only character that's not breaking character in this skit. It is entertaining because of the line where he apologizes that the angle of his dangle is not proportionate with the heat of his meat. And that's a very funny line coming from Will Ferrell, dressed the way he is.
Funny guy. We didn't even talk about that skit on the Will Ferrell episode.
Seann William Scott has 3 iconic moments with Will Ferrell, and this would be the first, I believe.
Well, we're going to talk about another one here in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, largest audience gap, 2002, and it's Stark Raving Mad. He plays a character named Ben. It's my review. The split for this one, audience gap, is 2055. So not beloved by the audience. Honestly, I'm shocked that we didn't have a bigger audience gap, to be honest. But I guess audiences would have to love a movie for it to be an audience gap. So maybe that's it.
Attaboy.
The critics score certainly aligned with what would normally be there. But so it's a remake of a 1981 film. It had a $5 million budget, and as Case can confirm or deny this, I believe it only made $54,028 in the box office, which is not good.
That's not good
for your return on the investment.
No. When you lose millions of dollars, that's a tough one to justify to anybody.
Yeah. It's a heist film where Ben, played by Seann William Scott, convinces a club owner to stay open late and invites everyone under the sun and uses the noise to cover up a bank heist. So basically, they're trying to knock out a wall in the basement to break into, and he's being manipulated by a local crime lord, and that crime lord is played by a Munson's favorite and the only other notable actor in this movie, and that is Lou Diamond Phillips.
Oh,
that's right, LDP, baby.
Remember that time when Rigby thought he was in softcore porn?
Oh yeah, he just casually threw that out there, like it was like something you can say and not fact check.
I think Rigby left the podcast because LDP's people told him, "We're going to sue you if you don't stop talking about movies on the internet."
The Lou Diamond Phillips thing is so funny, is because if you just said it, you believe it.
Oh yeah,
that's what makes it so funny to me. Because I get how Rigby gets there. Yeah, it's like, oh, Lou Diamond Phillips did that. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's a good looking dude. I could see that. Yeah. Like, that's just not true.
In this movie, he looks a lot like Tom Cruise from Collateral. He's got the white hair. He's looking menacing. He stabs the dude in the hand with a chopstick to start the film off to let him know how menacing he really is. It's quite entertaining. The concept is they're trying to keep the club going, and he keeps having the DJ play certain songs so that way it masks them, like basically blowing a hole in the wall, and just everything goes wrong the whole night. It's one of those films. Seann William Scott is essentially the narrator who's breaking the fourth wall throughout the movie for you, explaining things that are going on, but tying it to a funny anecdote, something where he gives you some weird metaphor to what's about to happen in the movie. It's just interesting because Seann William Scott had done very specific roles until this point, and this is very different than anything he had done before in his career. I don't know if it's a good movie. It starts slow. It builds up interest as you go along. It's some weird, bizarre side plots. It's like acid trip-like editing, very Tony Scott-like at times. Different. Not a great movie, but something different from Seann William Scott at this point in his career. It clearly didn't get him anywhere to like any bigger leading roles like that. I mean, I lied. It's going to take him to Bulletproof Monk in a second, but I don't think enough people saw it to really make any judgment on it, unfortunately. So that's Dark Raving Mad. And you're all welcome.
Thank you for watching.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your service.
And that's right. If I had to say where I'm at on the 55-20, it's like 40, 45. It's not worth, it wasn't a waste of time, but I wouldn't watch it again.
It sounds like this is the bridge that he takes to try to get to some of these action comedies coming up, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Bulletproof Monk, The Rundown, probably Dukes of Hazzard. So that makes sense.
Old School, 2003, alongside Will Ferrell. He plays Pepper, the guy who shoots a trank gun into Will Ferrell's neck accidentally.
Will Ferrell shoots it into his own neck.
Oh, that's right. Into his. Well, it's his trank gun. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I think that scene is hilarious. I think it's one of the most famous scenes from that movie. Hearing him talk about it, he was just excited because Todd Phillips asked him to join, and he's there with people he considers like comedy legends. And he's like, I'm just trying to figure out a way to play off of Will Ferrell, because Will Ferrell just kind of keeps going with his improv. And he's like, and I got to kind of play the straight man. And so I can't burst out laughing, even though he's saying these hilarious things. It's like, and what made it even funnier is as we're filming that, like, we didn't know they were going to do the slow-mo part. And so when we watched the final cut of it, we were dying laughing because we weren't aware that was going to be played that way, because we wanted to catch like genuine reactions. And so I think the slow-mo part is what makes it funny, that scene.
Well, Aubrey's getting ready. Maybe he'll cue something up for Seann William Scott's big action debut. I honestly think this was the most important year of his career outside of American Pie, because after American Pie and all these comedies, it was, hey, let's turn him into an action star and let's put a bunch of money into this movie. Yeah. And if this movie had gone well, I think Seann William Scott's career could have gone in a very different direction. But Bulletproof Monk, where he played Carr, he spent 3 months training, lost 22 pounds to the role.
What you're saying is Hollywood took a questionably talented guy who's known for a singular thing, tried to turn him into an action star, and it didn't work. This is shocking. I didn't watch this action dabble, but I watched another one.
Wasn't this trying to play off of like a Rush Hour, like we're from two different worlds kind of vibe, and you don't have the action star of Jackie Chan and the comedic charisma of Chris Tucker, and it's already been done in a better way before. I just remember everyone like just being completely disinterested in even seeing this.
Yeah.
And the director is very famous for doing music videos, and this was supposed to be like his feature film debut, so it was like a much anticipated thing, and boy, is it pretty bad.
Chow Yun-fat, I think he even takes a dip after this.
Wait, Chow Yun-fat is in this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the main character.
Academy Award nominated.
I would have watched this movie had I known that.
Yeah, and he's coming off of like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon fame.
Yeah.
It's 2002.
This movie needs a documentary. I want to know everything about this. Jamie King is in it.
I told you.
Chow Yun-fat is in this movie. It's terrible. I'm interested.
The director was also director of Tyrese Gibson's Shame music video.
Oh.
Aubrey, you might have missed out on a hidden gem.
No, I feel pretty comfortable where I'm standing at right now.
He's waiting for the documentary.
I figured out the problem. It's based off of an underground comic book, and it was made in 2003. It was before its time.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was before its time.
Sure, that's the only problem.
This comes out 10 years later. It's a banger.
Remake. 2003, first of 3 roles alongside The Rock in The Rundown. He plays Travis, the son who The Rock is having to run down, from Christopher Walken, who doesn't really like the idea of losing one of his moneymakers.
This movie's okay.
I heard a funny story about Seann William Scott's first interaction with Christopher Walken. He considers him like a legend of an actor. He's like, and so it's our first time on set, and like we're all getting ready, and I look over, and he looks really sad and like downtrodden, and like he's like, "Hey, are you all right?" And he's like, "No, I'm actually having a really bad day." He's like, "Oh, what's going on?" He's like, "It's my birthday, and like no one has said anything about it, and like no one seems to care, and you're one of the actors on here, and the production company doesn't even know that it's your birthday. Like there's no celebration." And Seann William Scott, who's a genuinely nice person, immediately is like, "Oh my God, dude, we can get you a cake. Are you kidding? There's so many people running around. We can make this happen." And he like let it go for like a minute or two of Seann William Scott trying to make him feel better before he's like, "Nah, I'm just messing with you, man. It's not my birthday." And he's like, "What?" It's like, and then we just started filming the scene. He's like, and that's when I realized like Christopher Walken just like likes fucking with people. He's like, he just kept fucking with me while we were filming. It's like, he's just a funny old man.
The problem is, this is like pre-Rock figuring out how to be movie charismatic.
Yep.
It's not fully like loose because, The Rock is super charismatic and really charming and really funny and can do all of those things. He can be menacing and all this kind of stuff. But this movie is him trying to do those things as opposed to him just being kind of naturally who he is. And so there's really no chance for the movie to really work because it's kind of hinging on that. And all of the stuff with him and Seann William Scott don't work for me at all. It's not a comedic duo I need to see a ton of.
You get 2 more chances if you really wanted to as well.
I don't even know what movies you're talking about.
We'll talk about one of them. The other one we won't.
Rosario Dawson tried saving this and damn near did. She makes it watchable for me, for sure.
Good actress.
He does that for pretty much everything, right?
She's a good actress.
He's great.
The best thing about this is I put this movie on like the weekend. My wife walks in the room, sees Rosario Dawson and goes, "Ugh, she hasn't aged in a day. She hasn't aged a day."
Yeah, it's true.
Fact.
2003, he hosted the MTV Movie Awards with Justin Timberlake. So that pinnacle of pop culture sensation, right, coming off The Rundown. So
It was a big deal at that time.
Oh yeah,
I know you kids don't believe us, but that was a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
huge deal. When I say MTV Best Kiss, I'm saying it in jest, but at the same time, Tobey Maguire won Best Kiss for Spider-Man, like kind of a big deal at that time for pop culture.
And the opening of this is the 3rd Will Ferrell iconic moment. They did a spoof of The Matrix with him, Justin Timberlake, and Will Ferrell.
Well, this is another pivot point in his career because I feel like Dukes of Hazzard was that first big stretch that that took a crash. I remember this with Johnny Knoxville, and he played Bo Duke, and this was supposed to be the next big comedy for him, and Dukes of Hazzard just literally was like dead on arrival.
He considers this and one other movie to be tied for the worst movies he's ever done. He said that he knew at the screening almost instantly that this movie was no good, bordering on very bad. And he was incredibly uncomfortable even sitting through the screening. He's like, now everyone's going to come up to me and talk to me, and I know they're all going to lie to me. It's like, but I watched the movie, and it was not good.
Damn, that gives that much respect, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's like, what everyone says is like, you look like you had a lot of fun filming it. Like, there's no compliments to the movie because people don't want to, like, blatantly lie to their friend, you know?
I was going to watch it for this, and now I never have to watch it.
Correct.
So
Because I wasn't going to pay any money for it. But how did this movie get made? Was it him or was it Johnny Knoxville?
I don't think either one were first picks for the roles.
No. You know what this was? This was around the time that people realized that not just with action movies, but with comedies, they could do like old reworks like Starsky and Hutch and do them again and resell them. And it was just like a very clear, like, what if we did it just like that? Remember, people used to love this show, and you're going to get boomers who loved it when they were a kid, and they'll come out, and it was like just a clear money grab, and no one liked it. Yeah, very, very clear.
Also, 2005, is this the last year you could possibly try to remake the Dukes of Hazzard?
Probably.
I don't remember how they addressed the car, because I hadn't seen this movie probably since 2005, but they had to at some point address the Confederate flag on the car, right? But there has to be a joke, right?
The pop culture piece here was that this was Jessica Simpson's first movie.
Yeah.
And so that was like a big reason people went to go watch it. Well, I did read that Roger Ebert said that Steve Stifler was his favorite part of American Pie. It also says here this film is included on the film critic Roger Ebert's most hated list.
Okay.
I know Rigby would follow that philosophy quite closely. So, yeah, don't go watch it. Post some of the awkwardness of his dating life in 2005, he dated his first of several models, and he dated a Victoria's Secret model, Deanna Miller, from 2005 to 2008.
Official first girlfriend, not too shabby, you know?
Holy cow.
Something about shooting for the moon and landing in the stars or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, dude.
Fascinating.
Right?
That's his first girlfriend. Good grief. He didn't stand a chance in that situation.
Blind.
Can you just imagine the level of insecurity that you would have if your first girlfriend is one when you're 30, but two is a Victoria's Secret model? Like, there are things you're supposed to go through when you're 14 that he's going through as a man.
Yes.
And like, that's going to be tough. That's going to be really hard to get over.
I go the other way on this. I think he did just fine, and I feel bad for everybody he dated after that. Because he didn't have a girlfriend until he's 30, but that just means he didn't have a girlfriend.
Yeah, that's fair.
That he didn't have the status. Nothing official.
Fair point.
I see what you're saying there. Yeah.
That's right. When he does the group interviews with the rest of the American Pie cast, he's the most quiet one. He barely says a word.
Yeah, by far.
Jason Biggs won't shut up, and that's because everybody hates the guy. But so he goes to the voice acting side in 2006, and he joins the cast of Ice Age. In Ice Age The Meltdown, he plays Crash, his first of 6 appearances as that character between 2006 and 2016.
Has anybody seen these?
I think I've seen one of them. All things considered, like, if your career is going to go into, you know, what media will refer to as like, oh, you know, Hollywood turned their back on him, or, you know, oh, his relative obscurity, this is the way to do it.
Hell yeah.
I cash a fat check to just do like 2 weeks worth of reading, and I do that 6 times for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'll be all right. Everyone's like, oh man, what happened to your career? You're like, I own 3 houses in like Malibu. Dude, I'm doing great. Don't worry about me. Like, that is how I would respond to this.
So this was the second one, The Meltdown? Because these movies make money. These Ice Age movies make a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And the first one is legitimately good. That's the only one I remember seeing. Like, I sat down and chose to watch. The rest of them, I think I've seen bits and pieces. It made almost $700 million worldwide.
Pretty good.
And according to the trivia on IMDb, was the 3rd highest grossing film of 2006 and was the highest grossing animated movie of 2006.
Mm-hmm.
These movies are like sneaky, like they're like the Hotel Transylvania movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've never met a person that has seen the Hotel Transylvania movies, but they make a ton of money every time they come out.
Me? I've seen them all.
I was gonna say I've seen one of them, and I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I was ready to hate it because that was
I've heard that.
when I was in my Sandler hating phase, and I watched it and I was like, man, that was a charming little movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, he's fourth build, essentially, as Crash in Ice Age Meltdown. Doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
Probably helped with that 60th overall to be in a lot of Ice Age films, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine he'd be good at voice acting too. It makes sense to me, that transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another failed comedy in 2007's Mr. Woodcock. I mean, there's a bunch in there. Cop Out. The only, I think, good thing from Cop Out is that gif of Tracy Morgan going in the car with Sean. I've never even noticed that's really Seann William Scott in the background because you're so focused on Tracy Morgan like shaking his head. But that's from Cop Out. Mr. Woodcock, which he said has like a 13% or something like that.
Mr. Woodcock is the other movie that he ties with Dukes of Hazzard as his worst movie ever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which sucks because it's got two like legendary actors that he's working with.
Yep. Yeah.
In Cop Out, though, he does have one of the funnier bits in the movie where when he's getting into arguments with people, he just says the same thing that they're saying at the same time. And so Tracy Morgan's yelling at him and he keeps saying the same thing, Tracy Morgan. It is a pretty funny bit throughout the movie, probably one of the more funnier bits. Cop Out is infamous for another reason. It's the movie that Kevin Smith used the phrase, I learned that it's best to never meet your heroes, because he had such an awful time working with Bruce Willis on this movie. And he worshipped Bruce Willis. He thought Bruce Willis was one of the best of all time. Unfortunately, things didn't go great.
Interesting.
I mean, who wouldn't? Bruce Willis saved the earth. I feel like you have to have a lot of respect and adoration for him.
I mean, his oil drilling prowess is unquestionable. So, yeah, I do get you there.
That's true. And then the other one in there that's below 2 is Balls Out. Like, to just really not comedies that just didn't go well. Is trying to retain this Stifler vibe.
He tried really hard in Balls Out. Gary, the tennis coach, honest to God, he tried real hard. That movie just wasn't built to be successful, but he tried hard, and I thought it was fine.
That's going to take us to the largest critic gap, which is The Promotion, a film where he's battling for screen time with John C. Reilly, 2008. And this is James's review.
Promotion has a 55 critic score, 28 audience score, so not great on either end. So it's either like, it's fine versus shitty. Not looking forward to seeing this, but I will say with comedies, a lot of times it's hard to go based off of the Rotten Tomato score. You know, like if something makes me laugh and other people don't laugh at it, I won't care that it has a bad score, which I've seen with movies like Grandma's Boy, which I think has like single digit scores, and it cracks me up. And I know it's stupid. So I say that to say this movie did not do that for me. So the main character's name is Doug, which is played by our man of the hour. He holds the assistant manager position at a supermarket in Chicago, and they're planning to open an additional store in his own neighborhood so he doesn't have to commute as much, but then he would also get a promotion through it, hence the name. His boss is played by Fred Armisen, who I think is hilarious, and he assures him that he's the top choice for the job in the new location. That changes when a very friendly Canadian by the name of Richard, who's played by John C. Reilly, joins the staff, and to Seann William Scott's alarm, John C. Reilly's eyeing the same position. And so it's these two kind of battling it out for that role. I expected a bit more from this movie, especially with the cast. Jason Bateman has a cameo, Bobby Cannavale, Jenna Fisher, Lily Taylor. I mentioned Fred Armisen, who I do think is hilarious. There's a good cast here, but it's kind of unfortunate because, like, there's a nice basic plot, and there's some moments that are funny enough. Like, for example, John C. Reilly listens to motivational tapes, but he doesn't realize that the volume he's listening to them on is so loud that everyone around him can hear it. And so it's a funny running gag.
And it always inserts his name in it, too.
Yeah, and so it'll say his name, like, in, like, monotone robot voice, and then it'll say, like, just because that guy is younger than you, and, you know, is more liked by his peers, he doesn't have the experience. You, as the older candidate, will get the job. And Seann William Scott can hear that. I think that's a very funny bit. But by the end of the movie, you're just kind of like, kind of glad it's over, I guess. I think it needed to decide if it wanted to be a heartfelt movie that had some funny moments or a really dumb comedy that ended up having some heart, which I think I would have rather they've gone with, kind of like Office Space, which is a stupid, funny movie that has a little heart and soul to it. Seann William Scott, I will never mistake him for a Oscar performing actor, but he usually is like charismatic enough where you're like very evident on screen. He's going to play this kind of buffoon. I'm looking forward to that. And here it's just like super flat. You could tell he was kind of going for like, I need to be partly deep and partly tragic and funny, like a lot of comedic actors kind of take a turn at, but I don't think they work on either front. I think John C. Reilly's hilarious, and in this, I don't know. I don't think he was really good at all. I don't find his character very believable or likable or even funny. I think there are funny bits. I firmly side with the audience here. I did not enjoy this movie at all, and I think a 28 is probably being polite, maybe a little lower than that.
Ooh, it's not a good movie. It's hard to watch. His character's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, he like lies to his wife. He's like, well, I could tell she's like really happy that I got this job. So I'm going to tell her that I got the job, but I didn't get the job. And you're like, this is the conflict that is going to be resolved at some point. And then they're just like, I'm not going to resolve that. Like, all right, man, like, what are we watching right now? Like, what are you going for? Just tell me what the vision of this story is. Like, what do we want to happen?
The writer is Steve Conrad, and this is his only true comedy. Would that surprise you?
No, that would not surprise me at all.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about a movie that I love and is my favorite Seann William Scott movie, and that is Role Models from 2008. Plays Wheeler. I will rewatch and recommend Role Models. I will show it to people forever. I love Role Models. His character is Wheeler. Taste the Beast, bro. I mean, it's definitely a throwback to Stifler. That movie, the payoff at the end when they come together as Kiss My Anthea, has no business being as much of an emotional payoff as it does, and I love it.
This is a good example where it's like, this is a funny, stupid movie that has heart to it. Mm-hmm. And that is a quality I like. I think I just forgot how funny I think Ken Marino is. I think he is so fucking funny. And then I realized he's one of the writers of this movie, and he wrote himself into it as playing like the funny douche stepdad, and he just always plays a douchebag in every role that he's in, and I think it's hilarious every time.
How is he? He just looks at him.
He like nods, like, what do you think? Like, what do you think he's doing? You don't hug the kids like this. You hug them like this. He's like, yeah, obviously we're not supposed to butt fuck them. Like, what is this?
Do you know dinosaurs are still around? There's birds of dinosaurs, and they're everywhere. Naked hug. Oh, God, what a movie.
I think the reason why Seann William Scott's character works so well is I think there's a chemistry with the young Bobby Thompson who plays Ronnie. And I find it very funny where he's like, well, if this little 10-year-old is into tits, then I'm just going to tell him everything I know about tits. And you're like, that's a really inappropriate thing to do. But you could tell the kids like, all right, tell me more. Like, I want to hear about tits. Yeah, this will be great.
Build a relationship there, and then we'll grow into more mature things after that.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know Jews could sing like that. They could, and that's why they had to wear makeup.
Yeah. I love when he's like, shut up, reindeer games. He's like, I don't look like Ben Affleck. He's like, well, if you're white, then you're Ben Affleck. He goes, you are white. He's like, yeah,
you are white.
Yeah.
I am white.
I am white. Yeah, I am.
I remember it being funny, and I remember him being the character that has inappropriate conversations with children. And you guys are confirming all of my memories.
Never seen it. But if I knew it was this funny, I would have watched it. I didn't know it was so highly recommended.
Dude, Role Models is so good. So the first movie I rewatched when we got with Seann William Scott. I was like, this is it. It's fun, it's funny, and it's got a good emotional punch. Aubrey, I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Goon, 2011. So there's 3 years between Role Models and Goon. He plays Doug the Thug Glatt. Hockey movie. Not a lot of hockey movies out there.
This is my favorite Seann William Scott movie.
Oh, I love Goon. It's right up there.
And Kyle, you know one of the reasons I love it, right?
Because you love Ross the Boss Ray.
I love the fact that it's based on a true story. The real life character of him is Doug Smith, who was a
bouncer,
a minor league hockey journeyman who was just an enforcer. I think this movie of all his movies, this movie has the best blend of comedy and like good storytelling.
Well respected by the hockey community as well. I think that's important. Whatever sport or whatever you're talking about, do they accept it or not? Hockey players They don't love it as much as Shorzy, but they like Goon.
I mean, it's got 81-71 critic and audience, which is really high.
Mhm.
The other point of that I think is funny as it relates to him specifically is he didn't tell me he was a bad skater. Jay Baruchel was like, "Oh, you're from Minnesota." He's like, "Oh yeah, fuck yeah, I could play that role. I'm from Minnesota. That's a hockey state." And then they showed up for skating school. They had to rewrite the character.
Yeah.
The only way he could stop was by running into people or going into the boards. So his character is like notoriously bad at hockey, but he's great at fighting.
Mm-hmm. He plays a doofus too, like a really legitimately stupid.
Yeah, he's an actual idiot, which is a little bit kind of separated from his other roles where he's like the quick talking, sarcastic idiot, like more of like a
Different layers to the idiot role.
No, this one's like he can't really put sentences together.
He's endearing though.
Yeah, he's a nice guy who can't really speak like that level. Yeah.
No.
He's simple.
Yeah.
To the point where he doesn't talk a lot.
Might be the closest character to who he is.
Yeah.
Day.
He's hitting on that girl, and that girl's like, "Listen, I have a boyfriend. I just got to give you a heads up. Like, I'm a slut. I just like sleeping with a lot of guys. Like, I don't want to hurt your feelings." And he just responds like, "Okay." It just doesn't register in his head at all what happened.
The payoff when the antagonist of the movie, Liev Schreiber, shows up is really, really compelling.
Dude, that scene in the diner when he's like, "Listen, you got my respect.
Great scene.
But if it's you and I will knock you the fuck out." You're like, "Oh."
Yeah.
And they set it up well at the start of the movie with Jay Baruchel fawning over Ross the Boss Ray. You know it's coming.
Yeah.
Just a matter of how and when. It's like a rom-com. You know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
How's it going to take you there?
This was the first time watch for me.
And?
I watched it. I have avoided this movie since it came out because it is a picture of Seann William Scott's face on this movie, and I thought it was a stupid comedy. The entire time this movie has existed, I thought it was like a dumb hockey comedy. I like this movie. I wasn't surprised that I was going to like it. Because when you open your movie with Liev Schreiber, I'm like, all right, we're in a good place.
Yeah.
Like, whoever put this together is not an idiot. I'm also a really big fan of Alison Pill. I think she's an incredible actress.
The girlfriend. Yep.
I don't think this movie, to go with the narrative that Kyle is building around with me, I don't think that this movie does great with her. I find her character to be odd. But the relationship stuff ultimately comes out to work well for me. I think Seann William Scott is fine. The dumb kind of like simple happy-go-lucky thing works a bit. Sometimes it doesn't really. There's no extra level of it, right? So there's like, as I was searching for some level of comparison, I thought a lot about Ted Lasso, this like shamelessly optimistic person who like may or may not be good at his job, but it doesn't matter because he's so optimistic, and that's kind of what you're building around. And that's a lot of what this character is. He's just here to try to do the right thing. Like, he's not a bad person. He's just really good at fighting. There's no like real profound moment around him.
Oh, no.
It just kind of seems to be happening. The movie's like, hey, he's changing the culture here, but he's not really doing anything to do that. And so that kind of lets me down a little bit. But the movie's good. I think this movie is good. I think he's good in it. I like the hockey stuff. I like hockey. So anytime I get to watch a good hockey movie, I think hockey movies are fun. Everyone that is listening that does what I do, when you see Seann William Scott's face on a movie, you go, watch this one.
I agree.
That's an endorsement, baby.
This was my first watch as well. A bunch of my friends from back in New York are all huge hockey fans, and it's just the one sport I never had room in my brain to fit in. So I've never really watched. I don't really know the rules. I knew that goons did exist, and they don't really exist anymore because of all the head injuries. But all my friends always loved this movie and said I had to watch it. And I will say I lived up to the hype. It had a bunch of good one-liners. I love that the trope of everyone who plays goalie in any sport being just a weirdo seems to be universal. It's like every goalie is just a little off their rocker. And he's like, first time he meets the goalie's like, all right, 2 rules, man.
Best line in the movie. Right there.
Stay away from my fucking Percocets. And do you have any fucking Percocets? It's so fucking funny.
Yo, the bit with his mask is hilarious.
Oh, yeah. It's his mom.
And those two don't let up on him in Goon Last of the Enforcers either. They just continue to pulverize that goalie.
The first part of the movie that like really shocked me was when they're dropping the F-bomb pretty comfortably while they're talking shit to him in the stands. And then he gets mad and he's like, my brother's gay. And the guy just keeps calling it to him and he just pummels this dude to death. And like he keeps bringing that up throughout the movie. I was like, I'm kind of shocked because in 2011, they weren't making storylines in movies like that. It was more so, punching down or using that word as the punchline. And then to see him be like constantly bring up his like incredibly successful gay brother.
They do a good job juxtaposing the traditional stereotypes around a person who fights like that in multiple ways. One of them is the way that you mentioned, which I think is really clever. And the other way is to make him this really kind-hearted person. So you underplay the fact that he is really good at punching people in the face. What that just happens to be his thing, but that's not how he sees himself. Those are the most clever parts of the movie, and they just having those little bits makes it all worth it.
And it got a sequel. It was popular enough to get a Last of the Enforcers, where he and Ross the Boss Ray team up to take out the new owner's son, who is a piece of shit in that one. He's doing fatherhood things and doing some of those things. It's a decent sequel.
After Goon, which was filmed in 2010, came out, he officially put himself in rehab where he stayed for a month for unspecified reasons. He just said health and personal issues, stayed for 30 days before he left. And the next movie that he filmed was American Reunion. So he essentially took like a 1.5 year gap from movies. I think if you listen to some of his interviews, he's never addressed why it happened or why he was there, but you could tell that the death of his dad really messed with him. And then this is me speculating, the movie roles kind of, not all of them were incredibly successful. Like Role Models has good reviews, but it didn't really do well at the box office at that time. Aside from like the Ice Age movies, he wasn't doing very well at this point in his career. So this is me again speculating. And so he came back out to cash a check with American Reunion, which I completely understand. I would too, especially if they're giving you a portion of the profits.
Oh, yeah.
So after that heartbreak of the first model, he goes to another Victoria's Secret model, this time Lindsay Framote. And they were engaged, started dating in 2012, broke up in 2013. There's a theme here. And then in 2013, we have to note that he joined the cast of one of the worst movies he's ever made, and that is movie 43, where he plays Brian. He joins Johnny Knoxville once again in the scene where Gerard Butler plays a leprechaun that they are interrogating for his gold, and then his leprechaun brother and him beat the living shit out of both of them. Might be the least offensive scene in that entire movie, to be honest.
That's an accomplishment. Do you think anybody comments on the fact that the best work him and Johnny Knoxville did together was Jackass, when Johnny Knoxville was getting tackled by Jared Allen?
It might be. That's top of the list.
That is a good scene, by the way.
Yes, it is. So tell us about Country Mac. One episode, It's Always Sunny.
It's my favorite episode of the entire show.
Unbelievable.
Each character in that show has like one or two running bits. And Max is that you forget, but there are a few things like he's obsessed with karate.
Obsessed. They
allude to him being a closeted homosexual, but the reason why he's closeted is because he is devoutly Catholic to the point where he's a bigot. And it just randomly comes up in conversations every few episodes or once every season. And you forget that this is a thing, that like he doesn't believe in evolution and all that stuff. And they meet his cousin, who is played by Seann William Scott, and they just call him Country Mac because he's from the country. And he believes everything that Mac does, except he's cool. And he's not a bigot. So he's super religious, but he's like the really nice Catholic who like makes life better. And he's out and he's gay and he loves karate and he loves motorcycles and he makes it all cool. And they all realize that they're like, every time they see him, he's got a beer in his hand and he's sleeveless and they love being around him. And they realize it's not that they don't like those things. It's that they hate their friend Mac. And there comes a realization where they're like, I thought Mac was ruining my life, but now that I realize that the only reason I hate religion is because of Mac. They're like, I'm concerned that he's ruining my afterlife as well. It's like, and it just took Seann William Scott being there for them to put it together.
And they greet each other by doing a series of karate moves. It's really funny.
Oh, dude, it's such a good episode.
Because Dames isn't here, we're not going to really talk about Just Before I Go. His character is Ted as lowest critic score.
Oh.
Again, sick joke, as Aubrey said, that he left and didn't have to review this movie. But from what I can tell, it's directed by Courtney Cox, and it is about basically a guy. He's on the verge of giving up, and he travels to his hometown to make amends. So it's like a suicidal bucket list, which, if that sounds awful, it probably is. And just another example, I think, where he went to the dramatic side, and for maybe somebody who was new to directing, and I don't think it did his career any service.
Well, let's keep this positive. James, this world grossed $11,000. What can we do with $11,000?
What I do know is that you can buy a used Thunderbird for $6,000.
Hell yes!
You have $5,000 that you could spend on whatever you want, man. That's good living.
I'm blessed. I love that. Good move, Seann William Scott.
Mm-hmm.
We salute you, sir.
7 more years until our last review, and first and foremost, a lot of the stuff he's doing isn't terribly great, I think, during this time. So some of the things I noted: Super Troopers 2, he plays Trooper Callahan in 2018. So the crowd-funded sequel of the original Super Troopers. I don't remember his character, to be completely honest. I think he might have been a Canadian cop in that, is my guess. But he tries to go to the dramatic side, in particular with the movie Bloodline, action territory, right?
Kind of felt like he's Dexter Morgan's cousin, who's a school counselor. These students come in and complain about their dads beating them, or this wrong thing happened to him. He's got some warped sense of right and wrong, and then he basically goes and kills these people and then goes about his life. And so it's like a character who's conflicted by trying to live this really good, virtuous life with having these urges to just kill everybody who does something wrong. I certainly appreciated what he was trying to do.
Got decent reviews. I mean, it's not maligned by any stretch. Having seen The Wrath of Becky, I just wonder how similar those two characters are. I know we'll get into that here in a little bit, but
this character's kind of between his character in Goon and his character in Wrath of Becky.
It's a good description. Lethal Weapon, after some drama on that set, he took over as one of the lead characters in that show for 15 episodes between 2018 and 2019.
I know the show as a whole was actually received really well by critics, and I've never seen an episode.
This was a weird TV time. I heard a lot about it when it was coming out. There was a lot of drama and stuff going on. This felt like a thing that would hit and stick. This is the type of thing that, like, you see with actors all the time. It kind of fizzles out for them, and all of a sudden they have a TV show, and they're doing a network TV show for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's a chance that makes sense, but I wasn't ever going to check this out, even though I love Damon Wayans.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't falling for this one.
He replaced Clayne Crawford in the 3rd season.
Oh, okay. Who was Martin? Okay, who was playing the Riggs character? That makes sense.
Yep. He did another TV show in that time too, Welcome to Flatch. He played Father Joe Binghofer. Kind of a mockumentary. It's described as like an Office, but for small towns. 27 episodes of that. So I give him credit on the back end of his career. He's trying some different stuff.
Yeah.
Very different from kind of what he had built a career on. I don't know how well it's going because, again, it's probably hard for him to get the roles he really wants, but he's trying some stuff. I'll give him credit there.
Yeah, this show and this character, actually, watching some previews and some clips, it felt like he was a more understated character and almost like the moral compass of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Found that to be a really interesting take on where he's taking his career, or where, this role puts him in this stage of his career.
It's a tough one because it's not streaming free.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to go pay for a TV show like that.
I'll use Aubrey's line of, this is just of the time. This was on the back end of the mockumentaries. It was on the back end of this like Midwestern town. In fact, I think it takes place in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. And then the last thing we'll mention before we get to our final review is he married Olivia Kornberg, an interior designer, in 2019. They were together until 2024. They had a daughter together, and they divorced 3 months ago. So pretty fresh.
So she was an interior decorator for Victoria's Secrets?
James, thoughts?
No idea.
He has a type.
He's a private guy.
Yeah, you can't really find too much of him about his private life online, other than the stuff where it's like, hey, here's a famous person who does modeling. Like, you won't see pictures of him out. Like, he keeps to himself.
I respect that.
Another parallel with Adam Driver for you, Aubrey. Both very private humans.
They're basically the same actor.
Totally agree.
They're going to have very similar Munson Meter scores, I guess, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last review before we get to top performances is his role as Daryl Jr. and an executive producer on The Wrath of Becky from 2023, and Aubrey has it.
So The Wrath of Becky is a sequel to the 2020 indie horror thriller called Becky. That one is basically like a teenage girl and her dad they like survive like a house invasion trauma type situation at like a lake house. And I say they survive it loosely, no spoilers. Only one of them survives. The Wrath of Becky is different. This movie is very interesting. I was excited to watch this movie. Only movie in his entire filmography I was excited to watch was this one because I like Becky a lot. Becky is a very interesting film. It's very funny. It's fun if you like this type of thing, and it's clever. One person that I heard around the time that Becky, the first one, came out, they correlated it to Home Alone, but like a rated R horror version of Home Alone.
Yeah. I see it.
Which is a great correlation. So that movie is a lot of fun. I also like the idea that like Kevin James was able to do something a little bit different. The Wrath of Becky, I was excited to see what they were going to kind of do with it. The description on IMDb says 2 years after escaping a violent attack, a teenage girl must defend herself against a domestic terrorist cell. I take issue with this description because
she's the antagonizer.
She really is. She works in this diner. She lives off the grid. There's a very weird opening scene to this movie where she's like a foster kid and she's like almost like psychopathically fooling them into making them think she's like this wonderful child. And then she ends up in the woods, like training to kill people. But she works in this diner and fantasizes about murdering people. Essentially is what it appears that she does all day. When she runs into insurrectionists, like they're literally planning an insurrection. And they are, how can I say this? They're being less than friendly.
Two of them, very less than friendly.
Yeah, one of them seems like a very nice guy. The other two seem like the worst humans to ever exist.
Yeah.
And, she spills coffee on one of them as they have an exchange. You see a grown man cuss out a 16-year-old girl, which is, that's what you're there for. I want to see that in a movie as much as possible. Their retaliation is to follow her home to quote unquote scare her, where they end up stealing her dog, knocking her out, and killing the older woman that lives with her. It gives her permission to be the psychopath that she is. She follows them to a rendezvous point where they're planning their insurrection, which is where we meet Seann William Scott, the quiet, controlled ex-military person who's in higher up in this like far right group.
Yep.
Basically the Proud Boys, but they're called something else that I can't remember. She essentially starts killing them, and that's the movie. Seann William Scott's character is really unlike anything I've seen him do because I haven't seen a ton of his later stuff. It's very quiet. It's very reserved. He never really loses control.
Stoic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stoic is a great word for it. And it's interesting. I won't say that it's overly compelling, but it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like it. And juxtaposed from the kind of wackiness of the movie's premise, it works. The parts of the movie that are odd is it's one of these movies I have a hard time with, right? Because it is clearly ripping something from the headlines. We're going to make it possible for you to root for this 16-year-old girl murdering people. Like we're gonna make her seem okay. So what's the way we can do that? Let's pit her against
White supremacists.
white supremacists, the worst people that we can think of now, people that are like legitimately planning an insurrection. You'll never root for these people. They say crass things about women. They say all the buzzwords they say in this movie. And so essentially you just have this movie that's politically charged, and you have this young girl running around murdering these people in gruesome ways. And it feels a little gross to me. It feels a little gross. And this is a movie that I think is supposed to be somewhat fun. Was Lulu Wilson, who plays Becky, is playing it fun. Becky, the first movie, is fun. This movie is void of all that. It loses most of the fun for me because it's so politically charged in a way that maybe it's the time, maybe I'm soft. I don't know what it is, but
Soft capital T.
I just don't think this is the way we should go about making movies. Like, hey, you know what? Let's tone down the tempo by having this young girl kill these insurrectionists, and we all can cheer about it and be awesome because they're terrible people anyway. So it makes perfect sense. Watch Becky. It's a much better movie.
Yeah.
And The Wrath of Becky, you could kind of skip. Unless you want to see insurrectionists get, murdered and have arrows shot through their face from far distances.
Could be fun.
Yeah, if that's your thing, then yeah, this is for you.
His character is very confusing to me in the movie because the first interaction you see with his character is him being like, just fucking give her dog back. Like, just, why are we dealing with this? And so it's starting to like make you like the guy who's planning an insurrection, right? Like he's very stoic, calm, and collected, but ultimately he's a terrible human. Like what he's planning is not great. But juxtaposed to the other guys that are there, you're like, oh, he's a respectable, honorable human. So I'm like, as much as I like seeing him play the role, and as much as I think he played it pretty straight for what he needed to, it's just kind of a confusing character to me.
What's the worst plot device ever is she steals the hard drive or the flash drive that has, is that a Word document that lists out the name, email address, and address of all the members of their organization?
Yeah, basically.
That's why he wants to kill her? We're in like a really politically hostile time. Like it's very tricky to walk these lines. And to have a movie so carelessly just dance all over that line makes me feel gross. Like, yes, those people are terrible people. Sure, watching them die can be entertaining for some people. Whatever, I get it. If you're going to bring that into it, then you need to handle it with a lot more intelligence.
Yeah.
Or at least a lot more care. Intelligence is probably not fair, but care.
Seann William Scott is one of the better parts of the movie. I just find his character kind of confusing, ultimately.
I would agree.
These movies benefit from a unique lead character is fun doing what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past that, things get a little bit flimsy.
All right. Top of the mountain. Case. What do we got? Top performances.
There's no way there's a list with his top performances.
Oh, there's a bunch of them. I think there was about 10 to pick from.
Put down the Haterade, bro. You've been drinking that all the last 3 weeks, dog. Get some Gatorade.
I've been drinking it the last 3 weeks.
2 out of the 3.
I watched the Planet of the Apes movies these past couple days. I feel great.
The list I found was from looper.com. I chose this list because it's one of the more recent ones coming out in September of 2023. Ooh. And the title of the list is Every Seann William Scott movie Ranked. We're going to try to focus in on the top 10. And of them, we spoke in depth about 7 of them. We spoke briefly on 2 of them. And we did not talk about 1 of them.
Movies only, not roles.
The context of the list says the films Scott appeared in may vary wildly in quality, but somehow he managed to be consistently funny throughout, never losing the ability to steal the show. So I would say that these are probably the top 10 roles, not movies.
Let's try to get number 1 best role.
Goon.
Goon is number 1.
All right, I love that. Let's go.
All right.
Okay, American Pie 2?
American Pie 2 is...
No, American Pie, but just number 2.
Oh.
American Pie.
American Pie 2 is number 3.
Also.
Are there multiple American Pie movies on this list?
Great question.
There are not.
Wrath of Becky.
Wrath of Becky is number 5.
Give me role models, baby.
Yeah, I think Kyle's right.
Role Models is number 2.
Yes.
There you go.
Final Dusty.
Final Destination is not on the list. Too small of a role for the plot.
Gotta be Road Trip.
Road Trip is number 8.
Evolution.
To be on there.
Evolution is
Probably not.
not on the list.
It's probably too small of a role.
I'm going way off the board. Already Gone.
Oh,
Already Gone is not on the list.
Bloodline.
Bloodline is not on the list.
The Rundown.
The Rundown is number 6.
Old School.
Old School is on there.
Old School is number 7.
Ice Age.
Ice Age is not on the list, oddly. I'm surprised by that one.
Dude, Where's My Car?
No, it's not on the list. There's no way I would have picked that list if it was on there.
Respect.
Definitely not movie 43. I know that one. Is that Dead Last?
Number 25 out of 25. And Aubrey, you'll be pleased to know that Dude, Where's My Car is 22 out of 25.
There we go.
I was hoping you say it wasn't ranked at all.
Is Stark Raving Mad on there?
Stark Raving Mad is not on the list.
Motion?
Has to be. It has to be.
The Promotion, contrary to Kyle's wishes, is number 10.
Oh, contrary to mine.
That's more of an indictment on his top roles.
I'll give you a hint on number 9. Think Allie Larder.
He said she makes an appearance in this movie.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
He is funny in that. That he loves animals.
The movie we did not talk about is Southland Tales,
With The Rock.
the other rock vehicle. Yeah, it says perhaps because it was bearing the weight of being director Richard Kelly's follow-up to Donnie Darko.
Oh, that's it.
2006's Southland Tales baffled audiences and critics at the same time.
Yeah, apparently there was a bunch of drama. It took forever to produce. Yeah. Thanks, Case.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's rate. Let's get into the Munson Meter. What we do, we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100. Based on a variety of factors that could include longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, acting range, awards footprint, any other talents they might have, their personal life, comedic chops, box office success, or anything else that matters to us as Munsons. I get the honor of going first this time. I like Seann William Scott. I don't think he's a great actor. I think Seann William Scott is really good at what he's really good at and has been trying to get away from that the rest of his career and has struggled to do it, which we've talked about quite a bit. I mean, clearly Stifler was a launching board in a lot of ways. He's thankful for it, but it's also tied him down, tied his feet to the ground in a lot of ways. I think he's a better actor than people give him credit, but the ones where he shows off some new muscles, smaller things that people haven't seen, and unfortunately it's not going to do him a whole lot of good with the scoring system I have. But he's in some comedies I really enjoyed from the early 2000s. His characters are pretty iconic, and I have to give him customary negative points for movie 43. Anybody that's in that abomination will have to deal with the maker that is my point scale. So with all that said, I'm going to give him what I think is a pretty fair score. I'm going to give him a 59. And next we'll go to James.
So I absolutely put way too much thought into the career score of Seann William Scott, but I wanted to make sure I gave him his proper due. So I agree with you, Kyle. His career was absolutely hamstrung by the same character that ultimately defines it. You know, the attractive, boisterous womanizer, popular high school guy who wants to be the center of attention and maybe hasn't moved on from that. The problem with being typecasted as that is it works when you're in your 20s and it doesn't work when you're in your 30s or 40s unless there's some kind of like sad, failed dream version of that, which I think could work. But unfortunately, society doesn't really want to hear from that type of character at the moment. Depending on how you equate success, you could say he's been successful since he's been in a lot of movies, had memorable roles in like 5 to 10-ish of them. He's not a star by any measure of the word, but he does have the name recognition for those iconic roles. In my opinion, though, he's at his best in an ensemble cast. He reminds me a lot of like the characters of like Tobias from Arrested Development or Joey from Friends, where like everyone says they love those characters, but like you don't want 90 minutes of them. You want a sprinkling of them. You want them to be here or there. They steal a scene, they give you a really good punchline, and then you see them, 10 minutes later. I think that's where he's at his best. I think in a parallel universe, he could have probably had a similar career arc to Chris Pratt, where he's still at his best when he's being funny and charming, but you could expand the roles to maybe a little action roles where he's funny and charming, but still like in that bag. And you could have a little bit more dramatic, but again, funny, charming, could still play off the kind of aloof doofus vibe that he's awesome at. I think there's still time for that to happen, and I'd love for that to be the case because everything I see seems like a really good dude. But currently, I can't rate him higher than a 55.
Aubrey.
I've been harsh on him throughout this podcast. I've been harsh on his movies more than I've been harsh on him. This is the one time in all of these that I've done that I wasn't surprised. There was very little here that kind of shocked me or made me think differently than I had already thought. He was about what I thought he was. There's a couple of things that I've learned in this conversation that have made me kind of open my mind up to him as an actor a little bit more. As an actor, though, he's not all that strong. He does a lot of comedies. I think the type of comedy that he does, or at least the type of comedies that he got pigeonholed into, you don't really need to be a super strong actor to be in those.
Yeah.
So I don't knock him for like, dude, where's my car being bad or Road Trip being bad. What he was asked to do is what he did, and he does fine at that. He does have a well-known character that, people will always remember. Stifler is a character that will always remember, and he did that. So I can't take that away from him. I do like and appreciate that he's taking different chances or getting the opportunity to take different chances now. And he's going for it. And, I like taking chances. Him in The Wrath of Becky is interesting. I'll watch him do something similar to that again. So, I'm not overly impressed. Diving into his career, it was about what I thought it was going to be. My score will be low, but I hope he can find a back half of his career that gives him opportunities to show things that I haven't been able to see yet, because I can only judge what I see. So as it stands now, he will get my lowest score of all actors that I count as actors. And I will give him, because I'm a teacher and I don't give anything less than a 50, he gets a 50.
Oh, okay. We know the floor. Let's go.
We don't give zeros out here. You get a 50, and F is an F.
Since Dames isn't here, Case, round us out.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys saved the best for last, because I think my points carry a lot more weight than the rubbish you guys are talking about.
That a boy.
Some of the points that you guys didn't bring up, I think, help me in my scoring. I appreciate the fact that even though he's been in high-profile movies, relationships, he's generally pretty private, and you don't hear a whole lot of people saying a lot of bad things about him. And especially for somebody that's known for that character, it would be easy to get wrapped up into that becoming your persona. So I think that's impressive. Speaking of that character, Stifler, very few movie roles as one name, and Stifler is one of those. And based on the point Kyle made earlier, I would argue that this franchise might have been based on Stifler. If it weren't for his character, that might have been a 1 or 2 movie franchise at best. It'd probably been 2 just because of the amount of money it made. From that first American Pie movie, huge pop culture impact. The word MILF is literally a household word. And it's flooring to me that people throw that word around as loosely as they do. And here's the important two that really bump his score up compared to what you guys are talking about. Number one, he's a Minnesota boy. We've only had, I think, one other person from Minnesota, Chris Pratt. So that's very important. You guys, when I say I likely played basketball against him, I'm highly confident that I guarded him at some point. And I'll be honest, he probably didn't score on me. And we probably had some pushing and shoving, but he didn't score on me. And the fact that I locked him down, you know what? I'm going to give him some extra points on that because he survived the wrath of Case defense. And he went on to have an amazing movie career. I'm going to give this motherfucker a 70
Oh, dude, I love it. You put the clamps on him, bro. You got to give him points at some point in his life.
Oh my God.
And he's not only did he survive that, but it made him better. It put him in a position where he could slap his headshot on his coach's desk and go, "Case didn't stop me. Look at what I did." I love Seann William Scott. He and I forever connected.
All right, with that wonderful crescendo there, that gives Seann William Scott a 58.5, which puts him in 94th place between Kevin Spacey and Jim Belushi. And Case is shaking his head because he doesn't think Sean deserves such treatment.
Hey, it's Academy Award winner Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, the guy I didn't even score. You guys, this is 2 episodes in a row where I really questioned what we're evaluating. Last episode, you guys didn't seem to give a shit about military service. I'm still offended by that. And now this episode, you don't care that this guy and I played basketball against each other. I'm appalled at this score. And Seann William Scott, when you hear this, I want you to know I am recording this episode under protest. You guys had your mind made up when you came into this that you were going to give him a shitty score.
Ace, I was in the 30s before I heard this basketball story.
Okay, well, all right, that's fair. You're right. I'm like Kyle. I'm getting a little bit defensive about my Seann William Scott connection and his, being a flautist.
I get it.
A little bit defensive, so I overreacted. I'm sorry.
Aubrey, what has he got coming?
There's 4 things in development or completed. One's The Last Bachelor, one's The Baby. I don't know any information on those except they're in development. One that's in post-production is called Bad Man. There's not a ton of people in this that I know other than Rob Riggle. It's an action comedy that deals with meth. I don't know much about that one. And there's a couple of things that I've seen that make it to where I'm not 100% sure how the rollout of that's going to go. The interesting one is Jackpot. So set in a very near future where a grand lottery has been founded in economically struggling California. The only caveat, if you want to legitimately claim the reward, you must murder the winner before sunset.
Ooh.
Paul Feig?
So I'm all in on this.
Yes.
Awkwafina, John Cena, Simu Liu, Seann William Scott, all in this. I was all in as I was looking through this. And then I immediately went 180 on this when I saw that it's an action comedy and Paul Feig is directing. I'm not in anymore.
I like what he did with Spy with Statham.
I did not.
I'm still in.
I have to check out Paul Feig movies to have a thought, but I did like the cast and the genre.
Aubrey wanted something a little bit more gritty, hard hitting, and it's probably just going to be.
I don't need gritty and hard hitting. I'm here for The Purge. Action comedy is wild.
And it comes out this summer, so
In August.
I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised by how this goes.
Appreciate you, Aubrey. All right, next podcast, June 13th, we're bringing back Crystal Clark. Did confirm she will be here. She's very excited. She was with us before for Christine Baranski and Halle Berry. She's the one who lives in Nashville, runs the Belcourt Theater. She's fantastic. Very informed.
Yeah.
Awesome guest.
Yeah.
The wheel selected one of these 5 actors. She picked that actor. So we've got Luke Wilson, Imelda Staunton, Jason Biggs, Renee Zellweger, and Kareena Kapoor.
This is not my favorite list.
Please don't do Jason Biggs. Please no.
Yeah.
You don't want back-to-back American Pie conversations?
I can't do that much American Pie.
Nope.
Talk about how Jason Biggs is an asshole. I have a question for you guys, and it is this. Who the fuck is Renee Zellweger?
Makes me laugh every time. I mean, that makes me, every time I see her come on or I read her name, I just say it in my head and I just grin and everybody's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I can't even get into it.
I mean, that's not how her name's pronounced. I thought you just mispronounced it.
I did too.
That's me quoting Chappelle Show.
All right, cool. Just making sure.
Is she a lightsaber?
I think she's the ideal choice.
I'm gonna disagree with you, James. I don't know what the ideal choice is here. I like Imelda Staunton. I like her. Then I get to watch some Harry Potter movies. I think that would be fun.
I bet she's a fascinating human. I bet she got some stuff.
I don't recognize that name.
She's Dolores Umbridge from the Harry Potter movies. She plays the queen in the most recent seasons of The Crown.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she was good.
I think she's a super talented actor, and I would like to see more things that she's done because I haven't seen a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Renee Zellweger is the biggest name, but I'm not a huge fan.
Fair. Okay. Yeah, I liked her in The Crown.
More than Luke Wilson?
I do Luke. Luke would be fun.
Yeah, Luke Wilson would be fun.
We'd get to do the second or the third brothers. And then the last one's going to be tough to get to, but that'd be fun to do too.
I get to talk about The Family Stone, which I watched for the first time this year and is one of the most bizarre Christmas movies I've ever seen.
Karina Kapoor would be hilarious because we were watching a bunch of Bollywood films, and now that Warren's no longer here, we could probably get away with it. Because I remember when I think it was Amir Khan showed up once upon a time, and he was like, "I'm not fucking coming."
This might be the first episode I'm not at. I don't know. I'll let you know. I might pull what I now call a Dames.
A Marvs. All right, so who do we think Crystal picked from the bunch?
I would bet Renee Zellweger because with the very small information I have, it falls in line with the other two.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of like an underappreciated or misunderstood actor, where there's something to like discover and get into.
I'm gonna go Imelda Staunton.
I think those are the two options.
Okay, very much on theme. Well, we'll see. I'm not even going to ask what Dames would pick because he's not here, so he doesn't get that opportunity.
Don't even care.
I mean, the genius, the criminal genius, criminal mastermind Dame.
Well, luckily, Dames doesn't decide. Crystal doesn't decide. I don't decide, despite what Case might tell people. Will decides, and we'll see what happens. Since we don't have a guest plug this time, you can catch us on X or Twitter, Munsons at Movies. You can catch us on Instagram, Munsons at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from Seann William Scott?
I've let you push me around this jungle for like 5 hours. You've been very aggressive, and I'm not taking another step until you let me pee.
Munsons out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?
Wait. I think we've established that caca and tuki don't work.
Right. Sorry.